Guys, Jesus said, I've come to testify of the truth. And I think he said, whoever is on the side of truth listens to me. The truth is the most important thing in the world. The truth is God's concepts about every action, every idea. God's mind permeating and becoming your mind. God's thoughts becoming your thoughts. Obviously, Christianity is going to heaven, but also your thoughts becoming God's thoughts. Christ likeness, God likeness.
The greatest battle in the world is the battle for the truth, because the truth is the most important thing in the world. It's more important than anything else to know the truth of God. It is the truth of God that saves. It's the truth of God that sanctifies. It's the truth of God that directs us in our lives. It's the truth of God that leads us to heaven. It's the truth of God's Word that interprets every single issue in this world and in life for us. So knowing God's truth is the most important issue. And Satan knows that. And from the beginning in the garden, when he led Eve to question the truth of God, first he said, did God really say that? And gave her the right to question God, and then went on to say, nah, God didn't say that. If he said it, he was lying. And that has never stopped. Satan's always attacking the truth, and the church is always defending the truth.
Here you can see I'm going through a topical Bible, topic for topic: abortion, divorce, hatred, anger, pride, whatever it is. This is the truth of God. Every topic, topic for topic. You knowing what God wants and says and believes about every topic, and you starting to believe the same. This is getting the mind of Christ. You start at A and you go down hundreds, thousands of topics, knowing what God says about every topic, knowing the mind of God, knowing his beliefs, and you starting to believe it. One day when you die and enter before God's presence, you must know and believe the same that he believes. This is not obviously in perfection and every last detail, but is a process of sanctification and godliness, becoming like God, Christ likeness, growing and developing yourself over your life period, becoming like Christ, getting the mind of Christ, renewing your mind in Christ likeness.
Jesus said he came to testify to the truth. That's still our mandate, right? Doesn't matter what the culture is demanding from us. I remember when I was doing the Ben Shapiro show. Did anybody see that? I did that interview with Ben. He said, does it bother you that people are offended by what you say? And my response was, no, I live to offend people. That's the reason I'm there, is to offend people who are living in lies and deception, headed to hell, and don't know the truth. The gospel will always be an offense. 1 Corinthians 1, it is foolishness to the Gentiles, and it is a stumbling block to the Jews. The gospel always offends the contented sinner.
The pastor says he lives to offend people. Now that obviously isn't in a bad way, but we are here to bring down concepts that God has given us that are so foreign to this world, so different to the lust of the eye, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life. How people think and act in this worldly world and how their worldly minds work, that people will be offended. It will be very strange to them. Our job is to stick to the truth of Scripture. Look at this great quote, I can, I will, end of story. Let's develop perseverance, determination, guys. Look at these next funny clips about animals. Isn't God's creation of the animals and the world around us incredible?
I can't stop filming insects flying in slow motion, and this is why. Look at this guy. It's an acorn or nut weevil I found in my front yard. I mean, have you ever seen something as awkward, determined, and just as glorious as this thing taking flight? I think it's incredible. So usually I make a video because I want to show or explain some interesting bit of science. There's no butterflies or bees in this, but there are 11 different species representing 5 different insect orders. So first, let's go back to that weevil and watch when the wings come out. When they unfold from underneath the elytra, they more than double in length. They're powerful enough to pick the beetle off the ground when it starts flapping. This is a smaller, broad-nosed weevil, and its hind wings use a similar folding pattern, straightening out to expand way beyond the length of the body. Getting off the ground looks similar too. Hold the legs out and let the wings generate the lift. Now this is a katydid. Unlike the weevils, this insect really uses its jump when it begins to fly. This one times the first down beat of the wing to end right when the feet leave the ground. This is a species of bush katydid that has comically long hind legs. Head to tail, this insect is only 20 millimeters long, but the hind legs measure in at 39.4 millimeters. They use their wings more like a sail when they take off. Wing flapping happened, but it was off screen, only once they were well into the air after jumping. This katydid with very leaf-like forewings is a lesser angle wing. The interesting part about this footage is that you can see the tip of one of its hind wings is damaged. A big chunk was missing when I collected it, but despite the missing bit and a few tears in the rest of it, it seems to have no problem using the wings and flying normally. This next little creature and the ones that follow are bark lice. You can find them hanging out on trunks of trees, sometimes in big groups, where they scavenge on lichen or whatever else they can find. Despite being known as lice, they're harmless to the plants that they live on. And what surprised me the most is how talented they are at flying. I love how right before they take off, they raise their wings and crouch down, then combine a jump with a wing flap to get into the air. Of all the insects I filmed, I never would have guessed that bark lice would be among the most coordinated. Okay, now this is a fly. You can tell by the club-like structures beating up and down behind the front wing. Those are called halteres, and are hind wings that have been modified into gyroscope-like sensory structures. This is something called a march fly, and its flight is way different from that of a stereotypical fly. When I think of a fly in flight, I think of something like this, an insect with extremely fast wing beats, and something that's a sleek, compact flying machine. March flies are not that. Their wing beats are relatively slow, and their legs are everywhere. They kind of tip and wobble when they lift off the ground. They're the type of insect you can just reach for and pluck out of the air when it flies by. Despite being awkward flyers, I think they're really nice looking insects though. If they seem familiar, you might know their taxonomic cousin, the love bug, which is a different genus of march fly.
Guys, be creative in whatever you do. Any industry you go into, change that industry for the better. Look at this drain. Who needs a plain drain? A person can put beautiful art around a drain and change the whole feeling about it. Listen to this guy speaking about long-term planning and long-term acting. Don't just act for the short-term for short-term benefits. Plan and act for a long-term better life.
Long path is a mindset that allows us to be future conscious, which means we push back short-termism. We think about the ramifications of our day-to-day actions and the impact they will have on future generations. What that does is it not only helps us develop new ways of being that help us in the here and now, but it also pushes back the despair that we all feel in an intertidal moment. Because what more often than not happens is we react very quickly, and what the reaction is going to do is give us a kind of short-term answer, because that's what we want. We can only cognitively take on so much at one point in time, and then we want to get things off of our plate. we have that drive. It's a heuristic. We don't more often than not want to deal with doing something that will be seen as a sacrifice for the longer term. Everything from walking downstairs and saying, I'm hungry right now, I could make a really healthy meal, or I could have that pint of ice cream, right? That's at the most basic level. Or the other thing has been in romantic relationships where I'm like, well, I don't know if this is necessarily the one for me, but we do have this amazing trip planned 2 weeks from now. What LongPath is asking us to do is to take a pause and say, is that the right thing to do given where we are right now as an individual or a society? Time and a place for short-termism. The question is, how do we quell that desire and the probabilities that we'll do it more so we can do more kind of long-term thinking and acting? It's on all of us to actually act in such a way where we see ourselves as all kind of having our hands on that much larger steering wheel. Those with privilege have to actually enact LongPath even more so, but it doesn't mean that anyone can't do it in one small way, shape, or form in their own life.
What are you using your phone for? Wasting time watching movies, gaming, scrolling, watching videos, opening notification, following people. Successful people rather do this with their phone. Learn about investments, sell products, make shops, create pages, flip items, that means sell items, learn to invest, develop good habits. Listen what these people say about In-N-Out Burgers in America. Create great products with whatever you're going to be involved in the future. Listen how the people rave about this burger chain. These guys created something remarkable out of a pretty simple product, a burger.
One of my favorite places in Los Angeles, In-N-Out Burger. We don't have those in New York. In fact, every once in a while, some cruel person starts a rumor, generally on a foodie website, that In-N-Out is coming to Brooklyn or to one of the boroughs. And everybody in New York goes insane. In-N-Out is coming. What can I say about this place? It's the only fast food chain that I actually like and think is reasonably good for the world. Whenever I come to LA, in fact, one of the reasons I look forward to doing the taste is because as soon as I arrive, I'll hit the airport In-N-Out, and on my way out of town after finishing the taste, I'll pick up another. Every once in a while, I'll even buy a big reeking bag of burgers with onions and fries and shakes, and I'll bring them back to my very nice hotel lobby, and it's really an amazing thing to see. Generally speaking, when you walk through the lobby of a nice hotel with a big reeking bag of fast food, people look at you like, you're low class, or, why are you bringing that in here? We do have a restaurant. No, nothing but love and admiration. Even from the staff, they're like, good going, sir. Nicely done, sir. Excellent. I would like to be eating that right now. Something else interesting about In-N-Out I found. I use Instagram a lot. And I found that if I were to take an Instagram picture of myself and with some really interesting people, let's make up a scenario. Me, Christopher Walken, the Dalai Lama, and Keith Richards in a hot tub doing bong rips. Pretty interesting stuff, you'd think, right? I'm good for a few thousand likes on Instagram. And that's about all I'll get in an hour, maybe 4,000 or 5,000 likes if I put that picture up. However, and I found this from experience, if I simply take an isolated photograph of my In-N-Out burger sitting on a table, an anonymous In-N-Out burger, I will get like 50,000 likes in 9 minutes. So, the thing about a burger is there are many forces at play with a properly made burger. You got to have a decent bun, right, to start with. Bun selection, very important. Good quality meat. Also, that would be nice. Non-limp, reasonably fresh greens and garnishes, also good. Cheese, you don't want fancy cheese. You don't want, whatever that is, this cheese-like substance is just perfect. But notice it's two thin patties together, okay? Maximum surface area, therefore exposing the maximum areas of meat surface to the popples of the tongue. It's brilliant. This is like a ballistic missile. Perfectly designed delivery system, protein delivery system. Yes. Oh yeah. There it is. My favorite restaurant in Los Angeles. A city with many fine restaurants, by the way.
While French fries and milkshakes are In-N-Out staples, it's the burgers that really keep people coming back. Why are these burgers so good? Read on to fully grasp the hustle behind the legendary In-N-Out burger. It all starts with the meat. One reason the chain has never expanded to the East Coast is that they have a firm policy of never opening a restaurant more than a day's drive from one of their meat processing plants. That ensures their locations always have fresh meat. How fresh? None of their restaurants have freezers or microwaves. In 2017, Carl Van Fleet, the then Vice President of Planning and Development at In-N-Out, told Business Insider, "At In-N-Out Burger, we make all of our hamburger patties ourselves and deliver them fresh to all of our restaurants with our own delivery vehicles. Nothing is ever frozen. Our new restaurant locations are limited by the distance we can travel from our patty-making facilities and distribution centers. And at the In-N-Out distribution facilities, they grind the meat themselves using carefully inspected whole chucks from cattle chosen just for In-N-Out. According to In-N-Out's official website, the resulting beef is, quote, 100% USDA ground chuck, free of additives, fillers, and preservatives. If that doesn't make you want to buy a hamburger, we don't know what will."
I would like to buy a hamburger.
I would like to buy a hamburger.
I would like to buy a hamburger.
I would like to buy the burger.
I would like to buy a hamburger.
I would like to buy a hamburger.
It's not just the meat that's fresh, though. The veggies practically crawled right out of the ground and directly onto your plate. According to In-N-Out, the iceberg lettuce that tops their burgers is, quote, hand-leafed. Every morning, associates light fresh onions and tomatoes, in addition to sorting through lettuce. A former In-N-Out employee told Delishably, "After working at In-N-Out, I can say without a doubt that it's the cleanest, freshest fast food you can ever have. Lettuce, tomato, and onions are prepared in the morning for fresh produce throughout the day." The employee also revealed that beside condiments, the only items that aren't prepared fresh in store and that do come in packages are the drinks, chili peppers, and the burger's infamous bread, which is basically just a variation of Thousand Island dressing. Everybody has their own firm opinion about onions, which is why In-N-Out offers so many options. Normally, the burgers come with a slice of fresh onion, unless specified otherwise in your order. And mind you, it's a whole legit slice, not just a single ring or a couple of rings. You can also order them diced, or you can ask for the onions to be grilled, which essentially means they're caramelized onions. You can also ask for a grilled whole onion. Heck, with that many options, they should probably just change the name of the joint to In-N-Out Onions. Getting the beef to bun ratio right is never easy.
Where's the beef?
Some hamburger places give you a lot less beef on a lot of bun.
Where's the beef?
But In-N-Out seems to have gotten it just right with soft, fresh, and delicious buns made at another family-owned Southern California institution, Puritan Bakery. Since the 1930s, the establishment has ensured the finest quality buns by not skipping any crucial steps in the dough-making process. The powers that be at In-N-Out describe the buns on their website as baked using old-fashioned, slow-rising sponge dough. And the result of the 7-hour bread-making process is a burger holder that is both spongy and pliable, and very pleasing to the palate. And In-N-Out has also nailed the other ratios involved in a perfect burger, too. The patty isn't too thick, which gives a cheese-to-meat ratio that leans slightly more cheesy than other restaurants. And the thinner patty also allows the condiments to shine a little more, without overshadowing the tasty beef. In-N-Out doesn't really mess with anything except burgers and their perfect side pairings, fries, and shakes. While other famous chains like Carl's Jr. and McDonald's tout tons of ever-changing menu items, In-N-Out offers less than 15. In-N-Out CEO Lindsay Snyder told Forbes, "It's not about adding new products or thinking of the next bacon wrap this or that. We're making the same burger, the same fry. We're not going to compromise." Her mission is in keeping with founder Harry Snyder's motto, which was to do one thing and do that one thing as best as you can. This ideal is clearly still embodied today and definitely seems to be working for the brand, which is allegedly worth around $300 billion. Lindsay Snyder also told Forbes, "I felt a deep call to make sure that I preserve those things that my family would want. That we didn't ever look to the left and the right to see what everyone else is doing, cut corners, or change things drastically or compromise."
Have you ever thought of what happens to trains when they have to go through snow in countries where it snows a lot? What happens to the train when it has to plow through all that snow? What does the train do? Well, nothing. It just goes straight through it. So watch out next time you're waiting at a station, if you're overseas or whatever and there's a lot of snow around. Just stand a bit back. So this device sort of mimics skydiving from the ground. So through that hole they push very, very high speed wind, and it holds you in the air. And yeah, you can practice movement in the air and controlling yourself, which is actually quite difficult at first. Create new and unique products, guys. Look at this concrete dome. Can be a normal concrete dome, but the guys made such a beautiful piece of artwork on it. Make your products and services one day of the business you go into unique and amazing. Look at these different types of watercraft these people have developed.
How to take the most breathtaking selfie at the Grand Canyon is a question that's been troubling minds since selfies began, really. We've gone up in a helicopter, we've tried the VR simulator, but to really get the heart pumping, how about walking out over the canyon and staring down, past your shoes into the gaping 4,000-foot abyss?
The Grand Canyon in northern Arizona, one of the 7 natural wonders of the world. It is an extraordinary place with an incredible view, simply perfect, and deserving of something completely out of the ordinary. Together with a developer, they hatch a groundbreaking plan to build a glass bridge out over the canyon. That's if they can actually build it. Because besides the brand new cultural center, the design calls for a 150-foot steel bridge that extends 70 feet out before curving back in a huge horseshoe and rejoining land. It will appear unsupported, hovering 4,000 feet above the river below. Its floor will be made from 46 panels of super strong glass. Taking the walkway will be like walking on air, giving visitors a hair-raising view down into the valley below. In 2004, 7 years of planning and wondering is over. It's time to bring in the equipment and see if they can translate the design on paper to reality in the rock. The plan is to lift the 600-ton bridge with hydraulic jacks up onto multiple 2-inch rollers. It's a system very similar to the way the ancient Egyptians moved the stone blocks to build the pyramids. As the bridge edges out over the drop, huge steel plates placed onto the back act as a counterweight to stop it from tipping over. Then a winch cable will be attached to the front of the bridge. As the cable is tensioned, the bridge will start to move towards its final resting place. Get it wrong, that's going to be 4,000 feet down at the bottom of the Grand Canyon. The bridge is in place, but the challenges are far from over. The next step is to create a walkway that's strong enough to safely handle over 1 million visitors every year, but clear enough to appear that when you look down, you're walking on air. In 2007, with the build finally complete, the bridge opens to the public, sharing the Wallapai tribe's rich cultural heritage and an awe-inspiring view.
In this next video, we learn from the world champion pizza chef. I think he won the world championship in making pizzas. How to make an amazing pizza. Skill up, guys. Learn something new every day. I went to look for top-rated pizza restaurants for sale across the world and found this one in America. Net profit, you can see their cash flow approximately $600,000 US a year. That's about 10 million rand a year. almost 1 million rand a month net profit this place is making. You can learn here from the best pizza chef in the world. You can start a little food truck. You can build yourself up, and you can build yourself up one day to income like that of 1 million rand a month of your own pizza store, especially if you go overseas. The world's becoming more one place. Traveling overseas, working there is easier and easier.
Hi, and welcome to
Vincenzo's Plate.
Oh yeah, we Mr. Johnny Di Francesco. Today, the master of pizza is going to show us how to make pizza napoletana, Napolitan pizza dough from scratch. And you're gonna learn how to make the best Napolitan pizza in the world. Because this man is the world champion pizza chef.
A lot of people think that it's difficult making Napolitan pizza dough, but it's actually not that hard if you follow the correct fundamentals. So, really simple. This recipe is 600 mils of water, 1 kilo of flour, 30 grams of salt, and around about 1 to 2 grams of yeast. So, what do we do first? We start off with the water. Very important. We always start off with the water. We then add the salt. Add the salt. And at this point, what we do is we need to dissolve. Now, really important, and something that we don't want to do is contaminate the yeast with the salt. So what we do is we separate it, and the way we do that is by adding at least 10% of the flour into the bowl. So what we're doing is, frankly, just diluting. It's quite simple, right? So what we do is we open up the flour pack, and what we do is we add around about 10%.
More than 10%, it's still okay.
It's still okay, yeah. Not a big deal. So around about this, we get it to this consistency. We then get the yeast. As we can see, very little yeast.
Oh, wow.
And what we do is we place the yeast directly into the mix.
Is that fresh yeast?
Fresh yeast, yep. So this will dissolve in a matter of seconds. There we go, all gone. Nice cream paste there. Now, once we've achieved this, what we then do is we'll proceed to add the remaining of the flour. Now, only a little bit at a time, okay? Because you want the flour to absorb all that water. So a little bit at a time, we add, we keep mixing. I'm trying to keep my bowl really clean along the perimeter, so that way I don't have any flour stuck there or any unused flour. We want to use up all of it, so always mixing along the sides. Okay, now as we can see, the dough has formed, which is great, because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn this onto the table, and this is where the work begins. So what we want to do is now, with two of our hands, we're mixing always into the flour. As you can see, I'm pushing in and then I'm turning over. And I won't add any more flour until I see that all the flour on the bench has been absorbed. You know, Vincenzo, we allow our dough to rise for at least 24 hours.
So Johnny, you know, you said you only use 4 simple ingredients, and you know, it is simple, but what's the most important ingredient in the recipe?
Look, all the ingredients are important, but you do need to ensure that you are using the right flour to make a Napolitan pizza. This is very, very important, because if you're not using, and as you can see on the pack, it says tipo 00. There's a lot of flours out there that have tipo 00 or type 00. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's good to make pizza with.
Okay.
It's the W rating in the flour that's extremely important. Now, people say, what's the W rating? Well, W rating is the protein and gluten content that is in the flour, okay?
Right.
Very important, because they can range anywhere from 100 to 400. To make a Napolitan pizza, you need a W rating between 280 and 330.
Right.
Extremely important, okay? Have a look at this dough. Look how it's coming out.
Oh, wow.
Right? Now, how do we know when the dough is ready? Couple of different ways. We can either make our dough into a nice ball, we press down. If it pops back up, that generally tells you that the dough is ready. Although the best way to tell whether the dough is ready or not is by getting a thermometer, placing it into the core of the dough, and if you're between 23 and 26 degrees, you're ready to set aside. This is what I'm talking about when you actually know that your dough is correct. Sorry, Vincenzo. I'm right. And now what we need to do is we need to place our dough aside to rest. But what we need to do is cover it with a damp cloth, because it's really important that we keep the dough hydrated. So we're going to cover it with a damp cloth. Okay, after 2 hours of allowing the dough to rest on the bench, we then come back to it, and what we do is we make our dough portions. Now, remember guys, it's extremely important to allow your dough to rest for at least 2 hours before you go off and cut your dough into dough portions. Now, there's a couple of things that you can do, okay? So first, what you can do is you can place them into a tightly sealed container and let them rest overnight in an ambient temperature. I prefer that. I prefer not using refrigeration. It's really important that if you get that technique perfect, you're going to make always the best pizza that you've ever had. Now, if you do want to use refrigeration, here's a bit of a tip. When you've got them put into your sealed container, or your tightly sealed container in dough portions, what you need to do is you need to allow the dough to rise nearly double in size. So you will then place that into the fridge. The reason why we do that is the yeast becomes dormant. Okay, but what doesn't stop is the maturity of the dough, which is extremely important. Now, we can't put an undeveloped dough in the fridge because your dough will continue to mature, but it will not rise correctly, okay? So if you keep it out into an ambient temperature, just bear in mind at a temperature of anywhere between 16 and 18 degrees. You'll have a perfect rise time over 24 hours, but you'll also have the yeast work extremely well, and your dough will also mature at the same time. This is the secret. You need those two processes to work at the same time. So normally what we do is we make our dough balls anywhere between 220 and 250 grams to make Neapolitan pizza. Okay, a couple of different ways on how to make a dough ball, right? So first one, you know, traditionally you'll see a lot of bakers, pizza makers, they round the ball on the bench like this, and we have a dough ball, and guess what? We have another dough ball. Okay, after 24 hours, the result is a nicely risen dough, okay? Now, if it's made correctly, you'll have a nice bounce in the dough. So, first step, we start 1 inch in from the bottom and we work our way to 1 inch from the top. So, using our fingers, 1 inch in, we press down and we stop. We then place our dough ball the opposite way, 1 inch in again, we press down and we stop. Again, one more time, 1 inch in from the bottom, we press down and we stop. Or you're flicking the dough to your forearm. So by you pretty much memorizing that technique, stretch over back, stretch over back, what happens is it becomes a natural movement.
What a privilege to be here with you today. Oh, what a privilege.
Pizza La Regina.
Guys, create something beautiful. Look at this girl, I think, skating on a lake of ice. How beautiful her YouTube video is, and whatever you are into, art, engineering, whatever, design amazing products. I thought of designing a few things in the house, and these vertical wooden slats like this create amazing atmosphere, especially if you change the design a bit like this. Or you add lighting to it. The lighting with a wood can make amazing products. And this is something I want to build maybe for the future. And don't worry about setbacks. Look at this mouse or rat using the trap as a gym. Setbacks can be for your benefit for the future. The best project you'll ever work on is you. Guys, we learned from the world's best pizza maker how to make pizza. You can start a pizza shop one day that makes millions of rands every year. Now we can learn about Elon Musk bringing in new press technology into his business. One thing he does is he's at the cutting edge of making things better and doing things better. Do that in your life as well.
One machine looks set to revolutionize the future of auto manufacture, and it really is a pretty big deal. Weighing about the same as 5 space shuttles, it takes 24 flatbed trucks just to deliver it from the manufacturer, and it doesn't even fit inside the original Tesla factory. What's it for? How was it inspired by a kid's toy? And will every single car manufacturer now be forced to follow suit or fall behind? Join us as we explore how and why Elon Musk is putting the squeeze on his competitors and investigate why Tesla installed the 430-ton Gigapress. His latest big idea was reportedly inspired by a dinky die-cast Hot Wheels toy car on his desk. Wondering, as he is apt to do, what the practical size limit for a die-cast vehicle is, Musk realized there's no real reason why full-sized autos can't be manufactured according to the same design philosophy. This is, after all, Mr. Make the Machine that makes the machine. Finding these sort of efficiencies is his whole thing. So in crafting the radical Model Y redesign, which will incorporate Tesla's new generation batteries into the chassis of the latest iteration of cars to roll off the production lines, Musk decided he was no longer happy that the rear underbody comprises a whopping 70 separate parts. Each of these 70 parts has to be screwed, welded, or otherwise glued to its neighbors, by the way. That's a complex and fraught process that consumes a great deal of factory floor space, energy, and time, and allows silly errors to creep in. Prominent auto industry engineer and consultant Sandy Munro drove the point home when he told Musk the back of his Model 3 resembled, in his view, a patchwork quilt. So in April 2020, Elon Musk announced to the world he'd purchased the 2 biggest casting machines in the world from Italian engineering firm IDRA in order to make giant self-contained parts, initially the rear underbody of the Model Y. The mammoth machines, measuring 20 meters long by 6 meters high, were installed at the company's Fremont, California factory later that summer. According to experts, gigacasting will help achieve a 40% reduction in rear underbody manufacturing costs. Not only that, the new single-piece casting design will deliver a 30% reduction in the size of the factory body shop. So how does it actually work? Broadly speaking, all die casting, from toys to golf clubs to Tesla chassis, work on the principle of forcing molten metal into a reusable mold. Once the metal has hardened into the shape of the mold is opened and the newly shaped metal is removed. In Tesla's case, the metal in question is a sophisticated and unique proprietary alloy, comprising roughly 90% aluminium, 8.5% silicon, plus traces of copper, manganese, iron, zinc, titanium, and lead, among other elements. A natural gas-fueled oven heats ingots of the alloy to 850 degrees Celsius, at which point it has liquefied. The alloy is pumped along heated pipes and circulated to prevent it from setting. Argon gas and a rotary degasser are applied to keep nasty impurities at bay, and the whole mixture is passed through a silicon carbide filter to remove stubborn lumps larger than 25 micrometers. To grease up the process before insertion, robots coat the mold's interior with 35 milliliters of soybean oil. The mold is then closed before pumps create a vacuum inside. The molten metal is then forced into the mold at high speed to prevent the hot metal from hardening, with a dash of extra lubricant to prevent it sticking to the sides. When full, the mold is then opened and cooled to 400 degrees Celsius. The newly shaped metal part is then removed by robot to a quenching tank at a chilly 50 degrees Celsius to help it set. A mechanical trim press cuts off any unhelpful excess to within meticulously established tolerances, shunting the waste back to be recycled elsewhere in the process, and the whole thing is X-rayed to ensure it's roadworthy. Final trimming is carried out by lasers, then conventional drills go to work getting the final piece ready for attachment to the car. Certainly, Tesla is going all in, suggesting that the current gigapresses in work or being installed at Fremont, Berlin, Austin, and related machines in Shanghai, capable of a clamping force of 6,000 tons, aren't powerful enough. To build the long-awaited Cybertruck, Musk is reportedly shopping around for even bigger machines with a clamping force of 8,000 tons. So, will other manufacturers be forced to follow suit? Industry analysis by JP Morgan suggests the bigger companies will struggle to reinvent their own production lines as radically as Tesla can. But smaller EV startups and agile, cashed-up Chinese firms will be looking closely and, in JP Morgan's view, should be investing in their own gigapresses before long. Any self-respecting 21st century company will surely jump at the chance to reduce its factory floor footprint, number of robots, and needless labor hours spent jigsawing vehicles together. So whichever way you look at it, these house-sized machines look set to make a big impression.
We're not all going to employ hundreds of thousands of people like Elon Musk across, I think, almost every continent on Earth. But all of us can use exactly the same principles he uses, and that is to revolutionize our industries. To try in whatever small or big way to change things for the better, to make it better than what it ever was, to be creative and invent new ways and better ways of doing things.